So everyone, it's time for the Magia Record episode 5 spoilers and differences reviews. There will be game story spoilers for North American version of Magia Record game and maybe the Japanese version as well. So let's head right in with what the game actually did in this part. So we already went through most of chapter 3 before. In the last episode we sped through like 80% of everything or 75% of everything, and now what we have left is the last two parts where we begin with Iroha is in the rumor Labyrinth, and she already notices that there are civilians sleeping there who probably got trapped by the rumor. And then she finds Oi, she chases Oi, and she tells Oi that she wants to go home together with her, but Oi is a broken record, and Iroha notices that that wasn't really Oi, that was a fake. And she ends up realizing that, yep, this labyrinth basically shows you whatever you want to see. It shows you some person that you want to meet, and then you sort of fall trapped to it, and then you sleep there forever, basically. And meanwhile, we then see that Yachio has found Mifuyu, and Mifuyu is also trying to tell Yachio on why she is the real Mifuyu. So she mentions the letters, she mentions the mugs that Yachio still has, and Yachio kind of then believes that this is indeed the real Mifuyu, and Mifuyu kind of doesn't want to leave because he says he can't leave. So Yachio kind of has a problem in which she wants to leave with you, but Mifuyu can't leave. But then before we go deeper into that, we see that Iroha is trying to reach Yachio, but she can't quite reach her because she's being attacked by these black minions. So she can't even reach Yachio at this point. And Yachio then kind of does realize that it is the fake Mifuyu as Iroha reaches her, and she's like, you know what? I kind of want to do something about this, but I kind of feel hesitant still. So hey, fake Mifuyu, go and defeat Iroha, because if you can do that, then I'll believe you again that you're the real one. I guess. So then Iroha just defeats the fake Mifuyu. She actually just defeats her. She actually does that. At this point, Iroha that just then wordlessly comes in and cleanses Yachio's soul gem. Yachio didn't even seem to be in that much peril at this point, but I guess we didn't see her soul gem, so we don't actually know if she really was in that much peril. So at this point, they kind of actually just leave the labyrinth. They just do that. They don't have a problem with that. They're just randomly in the real world again. And Tsuruno is still there, who was fighting some minions. And she's like, yo. Then at that point, they're like, wait a second, shouldn't there be like the Uwasa, the actual boss that should attack us? And then bam, the boss actually is there and attacks them and pulls them back into another rumor labyrinth, because in the game story a lot of stuff just happens when a character mentions it. Like a character goes, shouldn't this be happening right now? And then it happens. So yeah, that happens, and they of course try to fight the Machibito horse, and they have a problem. They can't deal damage to it. It's like the Machibito horse has a magical barrier around it. And then there's also something that happens quite a lot in the game story, is that they're trying to somehow deal with dealing damage to the Uwasa, but they can't really do it. So before, with the staircase Uwasa, what they said was that they had to the Uwasa had this like friendship breaking energy, and in order to defeat that, they needed to use friendship energy. So friendship energy counters the friendship breaking energy. And then here they go, well, it's an Uwasa that grants a wish, right? And we magical girls, we use wishes and miracles to attack. So maybe because we have the same kind of magic, the wish magic, maybe that's why we can't deal with it. And in order to deal damage to it, we have to attack with the opposite. We have to attack with curses and impurities. And this is the point where you think to yourself, what the fuck are you even saying, Tsuruno? Are you crazy? Has Banbanzai roasted your brains to 50 points? But this is actually kind of the case, because the story is just like, whatever, this is the case now. So they can't attack it because they can't attack with curses and impurities. And Iroha just goes, you know what, we should probably run away. So they all run away, and Iroha is getting weak at this point because of her soul gem being so weak, being so dark. So Yachio has to carry Iroha. and we see that she is kind of panicking a bit. And they keep running, and they keep having to fight through some minions, repel the Uwasa. This actually goes on for quite a while. Quite some back and forth with here's the exit, no, there's the exit, fight it off, couldn't fight it off, and then go somewhere else, and it's a really long back and forth until at some point Iroha then finally has this little sequence where she becomes a witch and the Doppel appears, and the Doppel actually appears in-game as well, where you get the special mission that you have to play with only Iroha, and during that mission you basically can't really deal damage to the Uwasa, but then the game just gives you the Doppel, and you activate the Doppel, and it one-shots the Uwasa. So yeah, Giovanna appears, the Doppel, and just one-shots the Uwasa, and at that point, Iroha actually transforms back. Like she had the Doppel out, and then just transforms back into herself, and she's fine, she's conscious as well, so she's just standing there being like, huh, that was weird. And then Mami appears, and she's basically seen all of that. And Mami goes like, I've just seen you transform back from a witch into a human. You're actually a witch in disguise. And Mami really wants to kill everyone. And both Yachio and Tsuruno, they try to talk her down, but they can't do it. This Yachio, this Mami in the game story is so much more hostile than in the anime. She doesn't listen to a single word anyone says. She doesn't try to talk to them. She doesn't try to reason with them. She just goes, well, I'm gonna have to kill you now. So Iroha decides to fight Mami alone. And Iroha and Mami actually do fight for a little bit. And Iroha actually kind of holds her own against Mami for a bit. So how is that, Mami fanboys? Mami isn't actually strong enough to kill the weakest Megoka in the entire game. Actually, it's not Kaede or Kaku, so it's actually maybe not the most pitiful and weakest Megoka out there. So it seems like, oh, that's a bit weird. How are we going to resolve the situation? And bam, surprise, Momoko just appears out of nowhere and just goes, hi, I'm Momoko. And Mami is like, ah, damn, and just runs away. So Mami goes away because she's like, well, I guess I can't fight that one more person. And at this point, we're trying to resolve this whole story, because the thing is, Iroha is right there and it's like nighttime and Iroha can't really get back home, so Yachio is like, you're staying with me. So Yachio basically tells Iroha that she's going to come to her home, and Yachio then grabs Iroha's phone and is like, I'm going to call your mother and tell her that for this night you are mine. So she does that. And Iroha's mom is totally fine with that. Iroha's mom was probably like, Iroha's mom probably afterwards went to Iroha's dad and was like, dearie, did you hear? This top model has adopted our little Iroha as her pet. Isn't that nice? Because you know how top models always, not always, but they often have like this giant purse with a dog. They often carry a dog around with them, like a poodle or something. Iroha is kind of like that. Whatever. So at this point, Iroha is at Mikazuki Villa together with Yachio, and Iroha is like, you know what? We should team up and investigate rumors together like partners. And Yachio is like, yes and no. We're going to team up, but you're going to be my assistant. Because we're not friends, we're not partners. Because Yachio is still really grumpy. Even though she often smiles and has blush face when she's talking to Iroha. So her heart is warming, but she's not gonna admit it. That's basically what happens at this point. Tsuruno then just randomly bursts into the door and goes like, yo, I've got ramen from Banbansai. And she advertises for Banbansai, because at this point we don't even know yet that Banbansai even exists, but Tsuruno is like, hey guys, I have Banbansai. This is like this cool restaurant. You guys want to come by at some point? And then Tsuruno also randomly says like, hey, did you know that Nemu is actually a regular at Banbansai? Isn't that weird? What a coincidence. And that's basically what this chapter ends with. So, what does the actual anime do? And then we can kind of look at the differences between the two. So, the anime first starts off with a flashback where Mifuyu actually has the Kamehama rumor files and talks about some rumors with Kanai in the background. So nice that Kanai is there. That's a little cool little detail, like a little cameo. I'm not quite sure on this, but I thought in the game it was kind of implied that Yachio was the sole author of the Kamehama rumor files. But in the anime, it kind of shows that no, Mifuyu was the one who is the author of the Kamehama rumor file, something that was already hinted at in an earlier episode. I think it was like episode 2, where I was it 3? It was 3, I think, where I was already like, wait a second, it's kind of hinting that it wasn't actually Yachio that wrote the Kamehama rumor files, but it was Mifuyu, because we also saw the Mifuyu letters at that point. So yeah, it seems like Mifuyu is indeed the author of the Kamehama rumor files, and then we go back and we see the scene of Mifuyu and Yachio on top of this building, whatever looks nice, where they have this falling out over the rumor of salvation. And I'm also not quite sure if this is actually a thing that happens anywhere in the game, because I know that, of course, Yachio and Mifuyu, they have a falling out and they sort of split up. But I thought they didn't actually know yet about this rumor of salvation. What I thought happened is, I didn't quite check it back, I probably should have checked it back, but I didn't have the time for it. That they had the falling out, and then Mifuyu goes away for like a few months, and then a few months later, Mifuyu almost witches out, but she doppels instead. And then the Smug Loli comes in, and Smug Loli tells her, hey, you would have died there and become a witch, but because of me, because of what we're doing, you did a doppel instead. You want to join us? And I think that's kind of where they first introduced that idea, like chronologically, where they first introduced that idea to the main characters, that the salvation exists. So I'm not quite sure if Yachio and Mifuyu, while they were still together, ever found out about the rumor of salvation. Maybe someone who's a bit more versed in this can tell me in the comments below, and I'll highlight it. Yay. So then we see that Iruka once again runs after Ui, but she does it before noticing the civilians. I assume they made this change, because if she noticed the civilians first, then it would have been really, really obvious that the Ui that she saw in here was definitely a fake, because if you see the civilians, you do notice, like, hey, they've all fallen asleep next to this faceless puppet that apparently is supposed to be someone from their past that they wanted to see again. So you can kind of see, like, oh, the rumor is tricking people. But without that knowledge, when she chases after Ui, it's still you still don't really know if the Ui that she's chasing after is real or not, so it keeps it ambiguous. Of course, that ambiguity is then really quickly dashed when Ui is broken record and immediately shows that she's not actually the real Ui. So once that is revealed, then she notices the civilians, and then it's kind of driven home like, hey, okay, there's some weird stuff on this rumor, but it's definitely not the real people that you are meeting in this rumor. So once again, then we see Mifuyu trying to tell Yachio, like, hey, I'm the real Mifuyu, and she mentions the letters, she mentions Yachio's grandma, she mentions the mugs, and we also saw the mug earlier with Kanae. So if you are an anime only, for example, and you go through this frame by frame and look at everything, you see, oh, that's Kanae's mug. Kanae's mug is still in Yachio's possession, and Mifuyu does say something, oh, you probably are still holding on to them. So they are kind of hinting already at this point, even if you're on anime only, you can kind of understand this person that you saw in the background in that earlier flashback, Kanae, is probably fucking dead. Or something else terrible happened to her. Maybe she also left, but yeah. So at that point, then Yachio also goes like, okay, you're probably the real Mifuyu, and she wants to leave with Mifuyu, but Mifuyu also doesn't want to because she can't really do it. You see, a lot of stuff is still rather similar to the game at this point. It is keeping kind of close, because this was actually one of the few, I think, good sequences in the game, so it's good that they actually kept it. So at this point, Iroha comes over. She doesn't have to fight a few minions, because that would have added like another minute of screen time. We don't have time for that. Why? And it doesn't even add anything to it. So Iroha rushes over to Yachio. He's like, Yachio, something's going on here. Something weird. So Yachio tries to call out once again to the fake Mifuyu. And Yachio is kind of hesitant to believe that she's doubting herself. She's like, wait a second, are you the real Mifuyu? And she's kind of hesitant to believe it. And you can kind of see her doubt manifest itself with the rumor barriers effect, the rumor labyrinth effect, whatever. There's like these plaques that appear on her skin. And at that point, because Yachio is kind of unable to make a decision, because this is the thing, I don't think Yachio truly believes that it is the real Mifuyu. Like I said, she has had these doubts before, but because she can't be 100% certain, you can see that that doubt is stopping her dead in her tracks, and she's kind of panicking a bit. And that's why Mifuyu then looks over at Iroha and is like, "You're causing this doubt. I'm going to attack you." And Mifuyu is also like really jealous at this point. I do like this a lot better though, by the way, that Mifuyu and Iroha are fighting on their own accord instead of Yachio going, "Yo, you two, fight it out, yay!" Because that felt so weird and forced to me. But at least in here, it is kind of natural that they do, because Yachio is kind of paralyzed by doubt. And then fake Mifuyu realizes, "You're causing this doubt, so I'm gonna defeat you. And you're also the new girlfriend of my ex, and I want to get together with my ex again, so I'm jealous of you now." Like, ah. So they fight it out, and in the game, Iroha just completely destroys the fake Mifuyu. But of course, in the anime, Iroha is way worse at everything, and she can't even defeat the fake Mifuyu. Well, I say I can't even, because Mifuyu is actually pretty strong. She's also a 7-year veteran, so she would be pretty strong. Even if this is a fake Mifuyu that was created, it would still be probably really, really strong. So Iroha can't do it, and she's actually about to die. But then Yachio does actually dispel the doubt on her own, kind of. So she does come to the realization that yes, this is indeed a fake Mifuyu. She backstabs it, and then she kind of panics a bit more. I'm going to talk a bit more about this, but we have seen that Yachio has been really, really calm all this time. It's like the first time where we see her completely lose her composure, and she panics quite a lot. And Iroha kind of has to help her and instantly cleanses her soul gem, which is also the same thing that happened in the game, but in here, but of course it's a lot more visually intense here in the anime, because of course it's anime is a visual medium. So at this point, we are still rather close to what the game has been doing. And next up though, in the game, what happened is they all just sort of left the labyrinth. They just did that. But in here, it's actually something different that happens, is that Tsuruno actually comes to them in the labyrinth. She basically says like, "Hey, I fought the guys off, and then I wrote some name on the plaque again." She probably also wrote Mifuyu. Although the thing is, since she knows that Yachio also wrote Mifuyu, she probably instead wrote a different name, and I assume the name that you wrote was probably Mel. And I'm just gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm just gonna say, if she did actually write Mel on that, and if she did actually end up meeting Mel, I mean, she didn't plan on it. She just wanted to go into the labyrinth, but I assume that she still thought in the back of her head, I'm just gonna write Mel on there, and if somehow I do find Mel again, she was probably gonna apologize to her, because we know that Tsuruno kind of blames herself for Mel's death. So I assume that if she was somehow ended up finding her, she probably would have apologized to her. But yeah, that's just a thing. Also, by the way, it's Mel, not Meru. So at this point, the three are also together again, similar to where they're in the game, but now they're still in the labyrinth, so we don't have to do this whole spiel of them leaving the labyrinth, then going, "Wait a second, how could we leave the labyrinth without the Uwasa attacking us?" And then the Uwasa attacks, and then they're in the labyrinth again. Sort of like you had two writers writing this. The first writer goes, and then they leave the labyrinth, and then the second writer comes in and goes like, "Wait a second, they should still be in the labyrinth," and writes them back into the labyrinth. So I guess they kind of realized that was kind of stupid, so they just stay in the labyrinth. And the Machibito horse attacks. The Machibito horse is now actually more of a seahorse, and I know that last episode I was like, hey, there's some foreshadowing going on because of all these wheels that you see, right? Because the Machibito horse has wheels. The Machibito seahorse doesn't have wheels, and it doesn't attack with wheels either, so I was kind of wrong on that. I mean, if they used the model from the game, it would have had wheels, but they redesigned it, and the redesign doesn't have wheels, so the wheels are not actually a foreshadowing to the Machibito horse now, but I guess spinning wheels are still a really nice visual, I guess. Good job, Shaft. I do think the Machibito seahorse looks a lot more imposing and a lot more impressive to fight as an enemy, because the Machibito horse from the game, I don't know what it is. It looks like just some children's toy. it really just looks like a toy, while the seahorse actually looks kind of like a dragon, and it looks pretty fucking big and large, and it actually does look pretty powerful. I think it's also because of the shape of the game's Machi horse is like pretty round, and round stuff is not very, looks cute and doesn't look dangerous. Round always looks cute. It's the jagged stuff or elongated stuff that looks more imposing. And it also, the wheels and the way it was just driving around looks really goofy. I mean, I know some witches look goofy and childlike, but they still have something twisted about them. The Machi horse didn't really look twisted enough to be dangerously looking, in my opinion. But the seahorse, that's a lot better. I think size is also a big thing in this case. So unlike the game with the whole, it uses the same kind of wish magic as we do, so we have to attack with the opposite magic, which was like, what the fuck are you even talking about? They instead go, okay, we can damage it, we can fight it, but it's regenerating and we aren't dealing enough damage quickly enough to defeat it completely. So we have to run away because Iroha is also having a breakdown and we have to run away. And Yachio also once again carries Iroha, and Iroha at this point turns into a witch. They don't have a 5-minute long back and forth where they run all around the barrier while trying to fight off minions and whatever. No, the episode does not waste time like that. I know a lot of people have said that the pacing is too fast. I think if you look back at what the game does, you could slow down the pacing a lot by adding more stuff that happens in between, but all of the stuff that happens in between that they could have put in here is just so useless and pointless. Like, do we need another 5 minutes of them running all around the labyrinth while fighting minions, fighting off the Uwasa, back and forth? There's the exit, I found the exit, but I have to hold off the Uwasa first. Let me run over there, hold off the Uwasa. Oh no, I couldn't hold off the Uwasa. The Uwasa is coming for you. I'm gonna hold off the Uwasa now. I'm gonna throw Iroha on the ground because I can't fight together with her on my back. It's like so much weird stuff around that. Why would you need this? You wouldn't need this at all, this back and forth. Just get to the point. The point is they fight it, they can't fight it because they don't deal enough damage, and they have to run away, and then Iroha becomes a witch. That's all the beats you need to hit. Of course, that doesn't mean that you should just go from point to point to point to point. There should be some time in between to let story plots develop and stick around. I'm gonna go too far into this because some people might not have watched it, but in Star Wars Episode 9, a lot of stuff happens really, really fast. It's like one thing after another. It like rushes from plot point to plot point, and you don't really get time to breathe and think about what's going on. And I think that's what some people really mean when they talk about the pacing of this episode and maybe some other episodes before this having been too fast, where the stuff doesn't really stick around for long. And for example, the point of this Uwasa being too powerful to fight doesn't really stick around for very long, because they immediately reach the point where Iroha doppels, and then Iroha Doppel just defeats it instantly. And the whole point then of Iroha doppling also doesn't stick around for very long, because as soon as it happens, we instantly jump into the Mami scene and Iroha is fine again. Like, they could have expanded a lot more on like, oh my god, Iroha's witch just tried to kill Tsuruno. I'm getting ahead of myself, but they could have like talked more about this, like, oh no, what is going on with Iroha? Yachio in the game was panicking a lot when Iroha was turning into a witch. She was panicking for like 5 minutes straight. But in here, she just goes like, oh wow, that's weird. And that's all the everything we get, all of the reaction we get from Yachio. She just has one face of her seeing Iroha turn into a witch, and that's all the reaction. The next time we see Yachio again, she's saving Tsuruno and is then cool and calm again, and she talks to Mami. So this is another point where you could say, okay, we could maybe add more time of Yachio being panicked and reacting to Iroha turning into a witch. Like, that is something that, even though it's not plot relevant that we see Yachio react to this, it's still something that enhances and develops the plot points that we have. So on one hand, I like that they cut out a lot of pointless stuff, but on the other hand, there could still be a bunch of stuff that they could introduce still to further some of the plot points. But once again, the anime only has so many minutes that it has, And there's so much stuff to put in, especially what the stuff that we see at the end of this, that with all the stuff that we were given from the game, I'm so happy that it still turned out this fucking great in the anime. So even though I will say, like, as a criticism, the pacing is a bit too fast and some of the plot points don't get enhanced or developed enough until the next plot point already happens, I'm still gonna give this episode a lot of points because it still did really, really well with the shit stuff it was given from the game. Moving on though, I went on this whole tangent. Let's go back a bit. So where we left off with was that Iroha was turning into a witch. We see this sequence where she falls into the dark. This is something that she only says in the game. She's like, oh, I'm falling into the dark deeper and deeper. But in here, of course, we see it visually, where she's falling, and we see her being tangled up, and we see her witch self not talk to her, but show itself to her, and it has this white, pale face, this blank face, and then the Doppel manifests. And in order to fully understand why exactly the Doppel acts the way it does, because in the game, it's just the Doppel is an attack and that's it. What the Doppel actually does, or what the Doppel actually is, doesn't really matter. It just attacks. It's a strong attack. Nice. But because the Doppels were all created by Inokuri, and not just the design, but the story behind the Doppels, the nature of the Doppels as well, was all designed by Inokuri, who is now the director of the Magia Record anime. You can bet your ass that they're gonna make sure that the nature of the Doppels is also gonna be visually represented. So what is the nature of Giovanna? The nature of Iroha's Doppel, Giovanna, is: the master of this emotion is aware of her Doppel's pitiful form, but is unable to view it directly. This Doppel speaks of nothing. It wraps everything that it doesn't want to hear in cloth and squeezes it to pieces. It is forever searching for something that can fill the empty hole in its chest. Despite how desperately it needed to call out for someone, this cowardly Doppel is afraid to take a direct look at the reality that it hid away with cloth, and its ears remain covered in silence. The Doppel of silence. So a lot of the stuff that I just mentioned is of course something that we see visually represented. We see it wrapping things that it doesn't like in cloth. We see it being blind because it blindfolds Iroha. We see it that the master can't really impact what the Doppel does and can't really look at it either. The Doppel itself doesn't speak. I mean, you wouldn't expect witches to speak, but that's still can't speak. It also squeezes the stuff that it's wrapped in cloth. Basically, every single thing that I just read off is visually represented somewhere, and I love that. So Joanna attacks it, and we don't need this attack with impurities from the game. I can't even believe that. Once it actually happened in the game that Iroha doppeled, Tsuruno is like, wow, I can't believe you actually figured out the riddle and created a new attack that attacks with impurities. And I'm like, holy shit, just shut up. So in the anime, however, Iroha doesn't just transform back into Iroha. Joanna actually attacks Tsuruno because of the nature of the Doppel, where it just attacks pretty much anything around it that it doesn't like. And I guess deep down, Iroha might not like that Tsuruno is always so hyper and better at everything than she is, apart from cooking, I guess. So, because Joanna attacks Tsuruno, Yachio tries to defend Tsuruno, but everything gets saved when Mami appears, and Mami Tirofinalis into Giovanna. And at this point, it actually makes a bit more sense that Mami is hostile towards it, because Mami just saw what she assumes to be Iroha attacking someone, almost killing someone. So she goes, that person is dangerous, that's a witch, we need to destroy it. But the thing is, unlike the game where Mami doesn't really listen to anyone, Mami actually kind of listens here to Yachio and Tsuruno and kind of converses with them and also talks about something else. And this is also something interesting. For one, she realizes she's lacking evidence or anything hard to go on other than just her feeling. While I must almost be willing to say that in the game, where she only really listens to her feeling instead of any concrete evidence, is actually more in line with who Mami is. Mami is exactly the kind of person who doesn't really care too much about evidence. If her feeling says it, she's gonna do it. But here she actually realizes, like, okay, I'm not actually, I can't back what I'm about to do up with evidence. And also, she then tries to gather more information, which is actually smarter. I know a lot of people like to defend what Mami did in the game by saying, well, it's actually really smart though to try and attack them, but it actually really wasn't. Because you're attacking into multiple enemies, one of which just one-shot an Uwasa, another person, two other people who are veterans for more years than Mami was. Mami is the least veteran person in that scene, by the way. Although we don't actually know how much of a veteran, Iroha is probably more of a rookie. So if we go from rookie to veteran, it's Iroha, then Mami, then Tsuruno, then Yachio. So since Iroha is unconscious, out of the other three, Mami is the most newbie magical girl in that scene. So don't go be like, oh, she's a veteran. Nope. In that scene, she's the noob. So there's no way she was going to be able to fight those three. And it wasn't very smart to just be like, hey, you guys are my enemies. I'm going to attack you now. And if she wasn't going to, in the game, if Mami already decided that she was going to attack them and that she wasn't going to be talked down by them, why did she even show herself and try to talk to them if she already knew she was going to attack them anyway? Why not just attack from the shadows? You're going to be like, yeah, but Mami doesn't do that. And I agree. Mami doesn't do that because Mami believes in justice. She believes in what's right. It's perfectly reasonable for Mami to go up to them and tell them, hey, I'm going to attack you now, because Mami believes that this is what's right to do. And I agree with that. But that's not smart. That's the thing. It's not smart to do that at all. So in the anime, though, she's smarter. In the anime, she's smarter because she realizes that would be a really dumb move to do that. It would be a really dumb move because she probably also realizes just from the way that Yachio is talking that Yachio means business. And we've also already seen before when Yachio was attacking the Machibito seahorse, where she basically threw as many attacks at the enemy that Mami usually does. Like, Mami summons like 100 muskets, right? Yachio summoned like 100 spears and even more. And I would argue that spears are more deadly weapons when thrown at high speed than a little bullet, especially to magical girls. So I think Yachio could probably... it's just a spoiler review. Why am I even trying to act like I don't know that we know from the game that Yachio can one-on-one and defeat Mami? I already know that. So if Mami in this scene actually attacked Iroha, Yachio would have completely destroyed her. So to go back to my original point, it's smarter for Mami to back off and not engage here than it was in the game. But I think in the game it was more in line with Mami's character not to listen to reason. That's basically the whole point that I was trying to make here. So after having backed down originally, Mami then goes, okay, I'm going to gather more information instead. And she asks about, hey, don't you guys know about that person that is apparently gathering witches from surrounding towns, and they're also gathering grief seeds, because it's also something that's not brought up that often in the game, this line of reasoning, that, yeah, a lot of witches and magical girls are gathering in Kamehama, drying out these surrounding areas. And Yachio basically is like, I don't care, I'm more hot shit than you, and you know it. So she walks all the way up to Mami, and Mami's like, okay, well, I'm leaving. And Mami backs off. Which, like I said, it's the smarter thing to do, but I don't think it's quite as in line with her character as it was in the game. So at this point, we then see another vision that Iroha has, first of not being a witch anymore, and then secondly, another vision of Ui. Basically, it kind of furthers this idea that we've already established earlier in the shrine, that Ui is kind of like this broken record where we don't really know what's going on. There's a lot of mystery, of course, still surrounding Ui, and we're just going to keep hammering into that mystery, being like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. And after she wakes up, she's now in Mikazuki Villa, and there's a nice little bonus, by the way. Did you guys notice that when Iroha doppeled, her braids in her hair became undone and she had open hair? But after she woke up, she had braids again. Who braided her hair? Yachio probably braided her hair as she was sleeping. That's a thought you should think about. So after she wakes up, she goes downstairs and Yachio is super duper calm and talks to her about it. And she's like, do we need to call your parents about this? And Iroha's like, nope, because they're not here. That's also something that's different. In the game, her parents were still at home. And so Yachio had to call her parents that she should stay there. But in the anime, because her parents aren't even there right now, she doesn't need to call home that she's staying somewhere else for the night. It doesn't really matter. So Iroha can just stay wherever she wants for the night, which is also something that's not quite responsible for her parents. I mean, people have talked about this before. It wasn't really responsible of her parents to leave her, a 15-year-old, alone in a really big city. But yeah, whatever. We don't care about parents in these kinds of anime anyway, so who cares? So Yachio is super duper calm about everything that has happened, even though we know that she really shouldn't be calm and maybe she's actually just trying to hide something. So something that was hinted at earlier, that Yachio is hiding something. And differently from the game, we don't really get this talk about both of them partnering and becoming a team, or Iroha becoming her assistant. I assume they do something like this maybe at the beginning of the next episode. Or at least they're going to hint at it in some way, because next up, we know that the two of them are going to do a lot of stuff together. So they're probably going to make a mention of them now wanting to work together. So we then see in the one final shot that Yachio reminisces some more about Mifuyu, and we also see this added info that Iroha is now in Mifuyu's room, which I don't think we ever got in the game, this added information. And yeah, that's kind of how the episode ends at this point. But then the post-credits scene happens, and this is where things get weird. I said earlier, or in the other review, that there are so many differences. This might be the most different episode, or the episode with the biggest differences to the game. And I didn't really mean most of the stuff that we saw in the proper episode. Like, everything up until now was actually rather close to the game. If it was just this and the episode would end here, I would be like, this was the most true to the game episode we've seen so far. But the post-credits scene shatters everything. And I don't just mean the fact that this post-credits scene is completely anime original. I told you in the review for this last episode that this was the last time we see Team Kamore being important to the story until later, when they return a few chapters later. But it seems like the anime doesn't want to let go of Team Kamore, and they want to do something with them. They want to use them in some way. And this is why I think this scene right here is not just important because of the scene itself, but because of what this scene is going to imply going forwards. I'm going to make a whole spiel out of this, but everything that I'm going to say about this might be completely wrong. But first, let's go over the scene itself. So the scene starts with Reina and Momoko being KO'd, which we have seen very similar scenes, also with Kaede being KO'd in the opening, the OP of the game. Now, I'm going to talk about this for just very shortly. In the game's OP, it was kind of hinted at that maybe Kaede dies and something terrible would happen to Reina, and Momoko was kind of in the middle of it all. But then nothing really came of that. Kaede and Reina were always fine, and nothing bad ever happened to Team Kamore. I mean, yeah, they were kind of depressed after they found out about the truth of witches, but they were just fine. They were just like, oh no, we turned to witches at some day. Momoko already knows, but Kaede and Reina are like, oh no, this is sad. But then they kind of get over it, and it's fine again. So nothing bad ever happens to them, even though the OP really, really hints at their death. And there's also this shift in direction after chapter 5, where from chapter 1 to 5 it was kind of, or chapter 1 through the middle of 5, because the end of chapter 5 does something else, but it was kind of hinted at that Magius, the wings of Magius, they all kind of have a point that salvation is really important. It really builds up the story as being about salvation for magical girls. And It has the antagonists trying to reach salvation with questionable means, but you don't really know if what they're doing is really that bad. You only know that they might be hurting people here and there, but maybe we can talk to them, maybe we can reason with them, or if what they say is true and we stop them and we stop the salvation, doesn't that make us the bad guys? So there's also some moral ambiguity going on. It was a really nice setup for a story that could have become really complex and deep, and it wasn't just good guy versus bad guys, but then at the end of chapter 5 and from all the stuff going forward, it was just, no, the antagonists really are just evil villains twirling their mustaches, and they're just crazy and they want to kill people, so we have to defeat them. And it becomes this good versus evil. And the reason why I bring all of that up is people like to also take that shift in tone from moral ambiguity, from a setup for a complex story, suddenly becoming this one-sided good versus evil story that wasn't really about salvation anymore. Nothing in the second half of the story is about salvation anymore. It's just like bad guys do bad things, we need to stop the bad guys. But the reason I bring this up is when people see the shift and they see the opening and they see this hint, this really strong hint that Kaede was gonna die. Like, it really looks like Kaede is fucking dead if you look at the opening. People like to have this idea, this myth, that up until chapter 5 everything was going according to a specific vision, and after that the direction suddenly changed back from what it was originally intended. The intended direction changed for some reason. Maybe the original direction really did kill off some characters. Maybe originally Kaede was supposed to die when the game's OP was created. But at some point they might have probably said, we don't want characters to die, so we're going to change the story. We also don't want to go too much into this complex whatever salvation stuff. Let's just have them be bad guys and let's have them fight the bad guys. Then we can write 4 more chapters of them fighting the bad guys. Nice. So maybe they, for those reasons, they shifted away from the original, the way everything originally went. And the important reason why all of this is connected to this post-credits scene is because people now suddenly believe that this post-credits scene is a sign that Ino Curry, the director, or Doro Ino to be more exact, Doro Ino really decided to go with the original direction. That is the big change. By the way, I mentioned I wasn't going to go into this before going over the scene. I still haven't gone over the scene. Good job. But everyone that knows about this theory, this myth that the direction halfway through got changed for some reason, and now Team Kamori never have anything bad happen to them. Because of this post-credit scene, everyone now goes, holy shit, they're going with the original direction. The original direction is back, baby! Team Kamori are gonna fucking die again. Maybe not quite all of them, but at least that's the idea behind it. That's the idea why I said that this suddenly changes everything. Everything so far that we have seen some changes here and there. Kurue, for example, appears and then suddenly is gone, and we believe she's going to die at some point when she comes back. She's probably going to be part of Magia's and then die. So we thought, okay, that's maybe going to be a change. The tone in general is going to be a bit darker, right? But now with this post-credit scene, it's not just, it's going to be the same but a bit darker. With this post-credit scene, suddenly people are theorizing, we're going full dark. We're going all the way dark. We're just gonna hitch a ride on the game story and then jump off and do something completely different. We're now gonna do our own thing. We're gonna do original direction, anime, original stuff. Maybe we're gonna arrive at the same ending at some point that the game has. But we can change absolutely everything in between there. And this scene is basically the smoking gun for this theory. And now let's actually go back into the scene. Kaede fights Albertine, that we know from the PSP game, which I think is also connected to the one paper airplane familiar that we saw in the original anime. Kaede Doppels. And let me read you the description also and the nature of Kaede's Doppel, because this is also rather interesting. The master of this emotion, fearing that her own local area may be eroded, tries to be very picky about where she calls it out. appearing at a moment irrespective of its master's will. This Doppel not only envelops its surrounding with putrefying moss to claim it as its own territory, but treats expanding that territory further as its sole objective. If called in the wrong place, even a precious spot may be so covered in putrefying moss that it cannot maintain its original state. Within the confines of its territory, this Doppel can make use of overwhelming power. Now, while we didn't see that much of this like area control and also changing the area around it and covering it with moss, we still saw some moss sprouting out as she turned into the Doppel Solar. And we also saw, after the Doppel has appeared, we saw that it did still have some changes around her, in that after she turned back into normal again, she still had this like, I assume it was kind of the blood of the witch, but if you know about this putrefying moss, you can also say that maybe it's also kind of the moss. It also kind of looks like nail polish, because Momoko's Doppel drips nail polish and she's standing over Momoko. I don't know, it could be anything, but I assume it's most likely just the blood of the witch. But I'm just saying it could also be connected to the putrefying moss that we saw as well. And then Kaede runs away believing that she has turned into a witch. And now also people believe that this original direction that we were talking about earlier might also include that Kaede, now that she has run away and believes that she's a witch, might end up joining the Wings of Magius, and maybe through that conflict with the Wings of Magius might meet her end. That's a big thing that could potentially happen. Now that I've already talked so much about the potential direction change that I want to talk about later, there's still some other stuff. So first off, the Shrine Uwasa encounter and the entire fight around it, and how that arc was handled was very, very similar to the game. Because like I said, in the game it was actually rather alright. There were a few really dumb things in here, like Yachio telling fake Mifuyo to attack Iroha, whatever. While in the anime it makes a lot more sense. In the game also they had this, I'm going to talk about it again, this really fucking stupid thing about the Uwasa using wish magic, and they can't defeat wish magic as magical girls because they use wishes as the source of the magic as well, so they have to use curses. It's the most dumbest thing that I could think about. So it's a good thing they never actually went through with that in the anime. That's gone. The next important thing is the change with the Mami encounter. Mami in the anime is more reasonable, she's less hostile, she's actually willing to listen to people and kind of backs down when she encounters adversity, which, like I said, it's smarter to act this way, but it's less like Mami. So yeah, especially I've already talked about the post-credit scene hinting towards the shift in tone and direction. I really want to see the way this is gonna go now. I really hope they actually follow through with this change in direction, and we're gonna see if that's indeed gonna be the case. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys want to see more, please remember to hit that subscribe button, smash it in, just like Joanna smashed in the face of that Machibito seahorse, and I'll see you guys next time. I forgot postscriptum. I want to talk about Yachio very quickly as well. I said that she was a lot calmer in this episode than she really should have been, and I think the reason why Yachio is so incredibly calm in the anime, for one, it might be supposed to be some sort of a parallel to Homura as well, but more importantly, I think in the game, it happened maybe a bit too quick that Yachio warmed up to people. Like, Yachio in the very early chapters was really cold, and I repeatedly talked about how cold Yachio is and how much of a bitch she basically is in the early chapters, until then she suddenly, in this chapter, decides, actually, I'm a good guy now. So maybe in the anime, while she's not that crazy evil at the beginning, they kind of still want to make sure that she's like emotionally cold, but like gradually warms up over time. And also something that I want to mention is that because Yachio is so calm all the time, it makes those few scenes, basically like the one scene so far where she kind of loses her composure, which in this case is when she has that sort of panic attack right after she backstabs Mifuyu. It makes those scenes have a lot more weight behind them when we know that she's calm all the time, and then suddenly we see that scene where she's about to break down. So I think they kind of want to go a bit more for contrast in that sense, And they also want to make sure that her warming up her heart is happening more gradually instead of just it being the case. Because in the game, she already in this chapter smiled and blushed a lot of the times, which I think was a bit too fast. So yeah, that's at least what I think they're going with it. Maybe they just like having the character more cold. I don't know. That said, also I think they still should have made Yachio react a lot more intensely to seeing Iroha's soul gem about to turn completely. But yeah, that's at least what I thought about that.